Hi everyone, good news. I just recently finished the finishing touches of my book. I'd received the first version of the manuscript of my new book, The Trojan Kings of Britain, back from the editor, and so I went through it, reading for mistakes or things that needed to be changed, and I created a list of all those things, and I also did the index, which was phenomenally tedious and tiring. And anyway, yeah, I did that, and so I sent those things back, and so now it is just a matter of waiting. So the book is going to be released on the 15th of April 2024. As far as I'm aware, there's nothing left for me to do right now. My work is done, and now it's just a matter of waiting until the release of the book. So I wanted to share a kind of summary or like an overview of the book. So I thought I'd go through the different chapters. So chapter 1 is about the authenticity of Geoffrey of Monmouth's Historia Regum Britanniae and why we can believe that what he wrote really was a translation of an authentic medieval document that he had, and he wasn't just making it up like lots of people today say that he was. It's similar to what I wrote in my first book about that topic, but I approach it from new angles and provide new pieces of evidence for it. And then in the second chapter, I talk about the traditional date for the Trojan War, because as I emphasize in my book, if you get the date of the Trojan War wrong, and obviously the migration to Britain led by Brutus was supposed to have happened just a few generations after that. So if you get the date of the Trojan War wrong, then you will not be able to find evidence for this event if it really happened, because you'll be looking in completely the wrong time period. So the second chapter of my book talks about the traditional date of the Trojan War and the supposed evidence for it, and why that evidence is in fact not valid. Then the next chapter, the third chapter of my book, talks about what the most ancient and what the weight of evidence actually indicates regarding the date of the Trojan War, which is very different from the ancient Greek estimates for the date of the war. And then the next chapter, the fourth chapter, looks into the historical figures who were around in that time. And so I identify well over a dozen individuals from legends about the Trojan War or about events surrounding that event. And I identify various people, over a dozen people from the legends, with real historical figures who were around in the era when the Trojan War actually occurred. And then the following chapter talks about the war itself and what exactly happened in that time period and the archaeological evidence for it and all that. And then the migrations that spread out afterwards, like the Greek migrations to, for example, Italy and Cyprus, and then also a few of the Trojan migrations to other places like Tania in Greece. But then the following chapter focuses on one particularly important Trojan migration because it's connected to Brutus, which is the Trojan migration to Italy. So that chapter goes into immense detail into that, arguing that it really did happen and pointing out when it happened. And then the next chapter looks at the identity of Brutus himself, and it clearly identifies him as a historical figure. And then the following chapter goes into the migration from Italy around the Mediterranean, and how that is again very clearly supported by the historical and archaeological evidence. And then the final chapter looks into the evidence of the migration from the Mediterranean over to Gaul and then Britain, and again how that is clearly supported by very strong archaeological and written and cultural and linguistic and even DNA evidence. And then I also have two appendices, one about a slight adjustment in the chronology in Assyrian, Babylonian and Egyptian chronology, just a slight adjustment, nothing major like Wilson and Blackett's revised chronology, or Velikovsky's revised chronology, or the chronology of Peter James or David Roll, nothing like that, just a slight adjustment, and then, but a necessary one. But then in the next final appendix, it gives an overview, well, not an overview, it goes into detail into Brutus's descent. And that's it. That is my book. That's an overview. So it comes out on the 15th of April, 2024, and I'm very much looking forward to when you'll all be able to read it and let me know what you think.